Hello? Anyone
What's up?
there? Oh, hey, that's Jacob. Jacob's there. What's up, man?
Hello.
I think is Scott there?
Yes, Scott's here.
Hey.
Jacob, what are you sipping on?
What was that?
Lemonade.
Ooh.
You got some lemonade there?
Can I have some lemonade?
Good for the throat.
This ruler is not cooperating.
Oh.
Okay, let's go.
Good for the voice. Good for the throat. Got that.
Wow, what a great intro, everyone.
vitamin C.
Let's give us all a round of applause.
Got
Yeah.
those intros right out of the way, man.
Yeah, we're so good. We're so solid.
The important thing is what we're talking about this time.
Well, welcome to the Digicast, guys.
Yeah, should we introduce ourselves on the most professional podcast on
We
the
literally
internet?
just did that. Everyone knows who you are. Everyone knows who Scott is. Let's get into Emulation. Scott, I want you to start for us because you were talking to us about this video you watched about emulation and about why it's challenging to sell old games and about legal issues and stuff like that, and why, oh, it's just an emulator, just throw it on the thing and you're done. Why is it not that easy? Get us started with that.
Well, so yeah, the video that I was referencing is a video from GDC. We should probably put a link to it in this video's description. The video is called "It's Just Emulation: The Challenge of Selling Old Games," and it's by a guy named Frank Capaldi. I'm probably butchering his name. It was a while ago that I watched this, but it's a really great talk. He talks about a little bit of the history behind emulation. This is like the talk where he mentions how Nintendo probably downloaded a ROM. Well, not probably. It's pretty certain that they downloaded a ROM of Super Mario Brothers.
It's just emulation, bruh.
And the version of like Mario Brothers, I think, that you play on the Virtual Console is literally a ROM downloaded from the internet, pirated by someone else, quote unquote pirated, and then resold back to everyone legally. But he talks about how, like, despite what Nintendo says and despite what like a lot of these companies always try to tell people, is that like when you look at what happens in the courts and the legal system as far as legal precedent and emulation itself being illegal, it has never been established that emulation itself is illegal, and there's a fair bit of gray area that still exists and stuff around like people downloading and playing games that they don't own and all that sort of stuff. Maybe we don't get into all that. I'm definitely not a lawyer myself, but I love what this guy has to say because he talks about the experience that he had, because he was one of the main people working on the Mega Man Legacy Collection from Capcom. He was basically on a team that worked with Capcom to put together a bunch of the old Mega Man games, release them onto a bunch of platforms like Xbox and PlayStation, and he talked about the experience of like getting this done, and he had to go through a lot of effort to basically explain that, look, like, no court has ever really said that emulation is illegal. And the reality behind emulation is that it's really, in a lot of ways, similar to like H.264 or MP3s or MP4s, like all these codecs or these like these ways that we format things. Emulation is very much the same way in a lot of ways. So like emulation is the equivalent of those types of formats to like computers themselves. Like all these old consoles, they're all computers, and so emulation is a way that you can essentially format for playing certain games, and you could even really build off of it. I mean, emulation might be all like retro based today, but in the future it really could be something that is used to build new games on top of, as long as it's an established sort of medium or format. But anyway, really awesome talk. I recommend after everyone listens to this, go watch this guy because he has a lot of interesting things to say.
Are any of us actually here in disagreement with this topic? I mean, do any of us actually think that video game emulation is wrong per se?
Not. So here's the thing. You can't just give a straight no or a straight yes. Like, you can lean towards agreeing that it's okay, or vice versa. I generally think it's okay because in most circumstances, I think emulation is a great thing. Like, obviously, the biggest thing is that it preserves games. If you want to play a game that costs like over $1,000 or is super rare, well, you can play it through emulation because there'd be literally no other way to play it. makes games look better. You can even mod specific games. Like there's a lot of retro games that are able to be modded thanks to emulation and being able to look into the code and being able to change all sorts of things within the game to create something brand new. But then again, there's those people that will emulate, games that just came out, like when Breath of the Wild, actually, I think when Breath of the Wild was like 2 days before release, people were already playing it on the computer. They found a way to pirate it and play it, through a Wii U emulator, which obviously that's a wrong thing, but that's the thing. Like, you can't just say it's completely bad or it is completely good, because there's so many different circumstances with emulation, and that's what makes it such an interesting topic to talk about.
Let me ask you this. Is it, if you have a new game that comes out and you are not satisfied with it running horribly on the console that it released on, if it's running on PC and it's running better, is it necessarily a bad thing to emulate it still?
I think if you bought it, then that's a really hard thing. Honestly, I'd probably say yes. I've always said that, people that usually disagree with emulators, I always tell them, like, hey, if you have already purchased the game, if you already own it physically, there is nothing wrong with emulating it, because you already gave that company, whatever company is selling the game, you already gave them the revenue. You gave them as much as you could. So I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah, you're just choosing to play it somewhere else that runs it better.
Exactly.
Because that's kind of where I was going at with originally when I would talk to people about Breath of the Wild being emulated. I was like, I don't think it's so wrong if they're going to get to run better on PC. I mean, I would love to play Breath of the Wild at 60 frames per second, personally. That would just make that game even better. So I don't necessarily think it's horrible if people want to play it on their PC. But then again, I'm kind of in agreement with you how you need to purchase the copy first.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I
just want to get your thoughts.
I think that like the big companies, back to talking about how emulation creates like that common format. So yeah, if you want to buy a game for one platform and emulation can suddenly make that game cross-platform, that's a good thing. And I think that it's really weird in a certain sense that all these big giant companies have never gone through an effort of kind of just like saying, you know what, let's embrace it, let's establish a standard. And instead of sending people off to the internet to potentially, gray area, maybe with a little footnote there, download illegal ROMs or whatever, let's just embrace it and let's use it to preserve our own content. And for whatever reason, no one has really done that. And it's ridiculous to the point where you have that example of Nintendo having to go download their own ROM because they don't even preserve their own product. And that's crazy.
You know what's not wrong, and no one can possibly argue because this is objectively factual and you cannot argue this, is the fact that I should be able to download Mother Goddamn 3 because I can't purchase it anyway!
Actually, when I was at Too Many Games, a friend of mine purchased Mother 3 on the Game Boy Advance. That's pretty damn sweet. I mean, obviously it was a ROM, but that is the beauty of emulation. I mean, it's not even just playing it on the computer. If you have the capabilities of putting it on an actual cartridge, what's the wrong doing with that? Like, if I want to play Mother 3 on the Game Boy Advance, why can't
I'm going to give money to someone. Yeah. I'm going to give money to someone who actually wants it. Like, if Nintendo doesn't want my money, that is totally fine. But you have no possible way of getting angry when I just want to purchase something that you will not give me.
I mean, we live in the age of iTunes. We live in the age of all these different online stores where we have these giant catalogs of movies and music. And we kind of, in a lot of ways, we don't really have maybe sort of a rough equivalent of that sort of thing with games. I haven't seen, for whatever reason, we just have not seen that emerge. And it makes so much sense. And there's so much money to be made, because there's so many people who, they won't it's just like you said about Mother 3. They're not going to go download the ROM if it's super easy to just go pick up at a store in a lot of cases. So...
yeah, I want to play a copy of Mother 3 on an actual Nintendo branded product or something like the Switch where I can take it somewhere.
Yeah.
And if Nintendo won't give that to me, I'm just going to go buy that portable PC that Nintendo just reviewed. Hi, Nintendo, if you're listening. Because I want it on a portable. Yeah, I want that on a portable. Yeah. And it's just such a simple little thing to do. And I don't understand. I guess when you have hundreds of thousands of fans pleading for something, I guess I would listen. So anyway, I was gonna go somewhere else with this too, and I don't remember what it was now, and that's
Oh, I
frustrating.
guess.
So someone else should pick up the slack, because I'm just trying to fill the silence right now.
Okay,
and
so
you can stop me. Thank you.
let me also talk about Nintendo for a second, because Nintendo is notorious when it comes to emulation, and they've been very outspoken. They've had a policy on their website for many years, which says the rough equivalent of, like, basically that emulation is the most evil thing on earth, and that it destroys industries and blah 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 blah. All right, like they have this super anti-emulation stance. But you know what's interesting is that there was also news that came out a while back, and I think we've even talked about it on this show before, on some of the like previous videos we did over on the Indie Jacob channel, by the way. But we talked about the news that came out about the Dolphin emulator, I think it was, and they figured out how to access the normal Wii eShop on the Dolphin emulator, so that you actually could pay money to Nintendo without having to own a Wii, using the eShop to download Virtual Console games on the Dolphin emulator.
I still can't believe
which
that.
then you could play. Yeah. So it was literally a way to make sure that Nintendo could make more money, since, you know, they're not making the Wii anymore. So if you want a brand new Wii, the closest thing you could probably get is to download the Dolphin emulator on a really nice PC, and then you could play, you know, all this old stuff, including that giant, because, you know, we have that giant Virtual Console library on the Wii that we don't really have on the Wii U, and definitely not the Switch yet, for whatever reason.
Oh, it's so big on the Switch. There's so many things to pick from, Scott. Oh.
So because we have that nice giant catalog of games over on the Wii Virtual Console, Nintendo's stance should be, oh wow, that's great, someone figured out how to like bring this back to life, we probably could make a lot of money off of this. But instead they have this completely irrational position that, like, even when it's benefiting them, they're still anti-emulation.
You know what's strange is I don't think it's Nintendo of America that has this stance. I think it's mostly Nintendo of Japan. And, you know, it's the same kind of, you know, it's like they're still living in the 80s, you know. It's Nintendo of Japan that's, you know, causing the copyright claims and the strikes and stuff on YouTube. It's not Nintendo of America. I mean, if you've noticed, you know, sometimes, every once in a while, you'll see, you know, people like Reggie on YouTube channels. That wasn't Nintendo of Japan's idea. That was all Nintendo of America, because they know reaching out to content creators is a smart idea at this point in time. So it's they just have a different perspective, which I just wish that they would change their perspective. But it doesn't look like they're going to do that anytime soon. I mean, just look at the Switch right now. Yeah. They could have, you know, at least the basics of Virtual Console on there, and all they got is freaking Neo Geo. That's the closest we got.
Mother 3.
Yeah. I mean, if Nintendo is smart, they will come out with either a very, well, in my opinion, what I think they should do, I think they should come out with an eShop, start from the ground up, but bring in all the stuff that they had on the Wii and the Wii U catalog for Virtual Console, add new stuff, build on top of it, hook it up to this new account system they have, which is actually kind of nice in certain ways, although there were you guys know that I had a little bit of issues with my Nintendo account around the launch of the Switch. But anyway, beside the point, it is nice that they have this new account system, though, because they can now launch a brand new sort of online storefront that has everything in it, anything and everything, whether it's emulated or not, and it's all connected to that one account. That's really, really nice. That's like the kind of stuff that Google and Apple and Amazon would do, so that's a great idea. They should be doing that as soon as they possibly can, you know, reasonably speaking, if they're smart. But I'm worried that instead what they're going to do is they're going to take their online service and maybe do a little bit more of the Netflix type of thing where you never technically own the games and all that sort of stuff. I think that could be a mistake, honestly, and it could be a missed opportunity.
You know, I think that could potentially work if there's a huge selection of games. Like with Netflix, you can watch thousands of movies. If we could pick from hundreds of different games, and they'll occasionally swap out every few months, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world, technically. Because, like, just as an example, I've never played through Donkey Kong Country 1 through 3 on the Super Nintendo. If they had all three of those available, I would have a few months to be able to play those games and all you have to do is just pay the monthly fee. So it could work, but I don't see Nintendo doing something like that. I think if they were to offer a service like that,
I think it's in their interest, both financially and in the interest of games preservation, which Nintendo should care about being Nintendo, right? Like they should care about preserving history, because so much of that company thrives and survives off of its own history. So, in my opinion, it would make much more sense to say, let's take our entire catalog, as many games as we possibly can, and get them onto a permanent storefront so that they're always available and always preserved, and we're always making money from them. And by the way, like, we've talked about this so many times, but like, that's one way that they could totally wipe the floor with the competition, especially at this point in the game with what they're doing with the Switch.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you, getting back on the topic of emulation, do you guys think that it is morally wrong if there is a game that comes out and you want to try it, so you download a copy of it because there's not an official demo to be made?
I'm honestly probably going to say yes. I understand why people do it, but the thing is, if you already have the game for free, there are going to be some people that aren't just going to demo it. They're just going to play the whole thing, and then they're never going to end up buying it. I think very few people, obviously not nobody, but I don't think a lot of people that can get access to a game on an emulator are going to buy it afterwards. I know you would, Jacob. I would.
Thank you.
But I don't think a lot of people would do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I have some moral issues with it, I guess. Just from the standpoint of like,
because I don't necessarily think it's wrong. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it, really, because like, like in one way you could like, there's multiple ways to look at intellectual property in general, really. Like, I've even had certain conversations where I take issue with the idea of intellectual property, but nonetheless, like, if you want to be practical about it and say like, well, we live in a world where we have decided intellectual property is a thing that exists. It exists in the laws, like all these things are true, and yeah, it probably does financially impact companies and so forth. I think living in a world like that, practically speaking, it is wrong to a certain extent to download a game that, even if it's not available otherwise, like, you still probably shouldn't do it. Like, even when it comes to stuff like Mother 3, as awesome as Mother 3 may be,
Piracy!
you still shouldn't probably do it. But on the other hand, like, these companies, if they don't want stuff like this happening, there are, I would argue, there are documented cases when it comes to piracy and when it comes to like the behavior of people, that the easier you make it to legally purchase something, the more likely people will legally purchase it when it's super easy. Like, that's the whole reason. Like, they've looked at this, and they've had instances where, like, as soon as a game is made available through like one-click purchases, through whether that's like doing it like through PayPal or Steam or like these different vendors and stuff, having that option available has shown in certain cases to decrease the prevalence of piracy for an individual game. When a game is flat out not legally available or discontinued or extremely rare, I mean, like, what do you expect? Plus, that's another, this is also like an issue for history, because when we're talking about games preservation, then it's really important that games continue to exist in some way, form, or fashion. And how do you draw the line between saying, well, I'm holding on to this ROM for history's sake, which is important to everyone, it's almost at like a humanity level or something, and how do you draw the line between that and saying, well, that person just pirated that game, I don't care if they're trying it, or I don't care if it's, it doesn't matter that it's a rare game and blah blah blah. It's like, well, how do you draw the line between that, right? Like, because some people can legitimately hold on to ROMs that are of extremely rare games for the sake of something that has nothing to do with like monetary value. You know what I mean? Like, there's also people that, I suppose you could argue, download a ROM for something educational related, even. Like, but how do you interpret that, and how do you draw the line?
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
I don't know. I don't know where she went.
Anyway, I digress. It's a very complicated issue, as everyone knows.
No, An
Yeah,
interesting point also to mention is that we have lost games completely because they weren't able to be emulated. Famous example, you can't play PT anymore. The demo was taken off,
I
and you can't.
don't want to talk about
That's
that.
that's the thing, though. That's another great thing about emulation is that if there was a way for us to preserve that game, even though it was taken off of off the PS4, off of the whatever the store is called, PlayStation Store, you know, if we were able to emulate it, that wouldn't be a problem. But now it's lost for forever. So unless you downloaded it before it got taken off the store, there is literally no way to play that game. And that's not the only game like that. That's just the most infamous case. There's several games on the PS4 and on the Xbox One that I've heard of that have been taken off for whatever
Scott
reason.
Pilgrim versus the World. I am so torn on emulation because part of me thinks, wow, it is so horribly wrong, and the Bible says stealing is wrong and you shouldn't do it, god damn it. And the other part of me, I solely support it for game preservation because PT was an amazing experience, and I incredibly enjoyed it when I got the chance to try it out. And it's a shame that I can only experience it through watching things on YouTube now.
And would we still technically consider all of this illegal or in violation of some, morality if you're just like in possession of these ROMs? Like if you just store these ROMs on a server for the sake of preservation, are you still committing something that's wrong in terms of your actions? Like that's what's so difficult about it.
I think it depends on
if you
how
ask Nintendo, yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think companies have the right to go on the websites that host the ROMs to take them down, but at the same time, it's not like these websites like coolroms.com. They have never ever made you pay money for a ROM. It's always been free. So it's not like, I mean, they're redistributing it, but they're not making any revenue off of it. They're making revenue off of the ads from the website, but it has nothing to do with the ROMs at all. So I think as long as you can get if you're going to get, a really old retro game, make sure you're getting it for free, because then that for sure you're not doing anything wrong.
Well, I don't know if that's for sure.
I mean, like, you know what I'm saying.
Because I go back and forth on this a lot. The question I asked you earlier, it was one that I personally gone back and forth on all the time, is it wrong to download a game if you want to try it out? Because if the developer did not make a demo available to you, is it still wrong? Because like I'm under the belief that you should make a demo available to everyone, because people they should at least have a chance to try out your game, whether or not you like it, and they should get the choice to purchase it or not after that. I mean, and that's just my opinion.
Well, I think I've kind of noticed that demos have been starting to become much more popular recently. The past few years, I've noticed a lot more people are putting out demos for their games, or like early beta access, stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of games that I have purchased because I've played a demo. And I mean, for instance, Nier Automata is one that is a very fun game, and I played the demo of it, and I was like, oh my god, this is really fun, and I never would have purchased it otherwise. I just wouldn't have. Like, that wasn't on my radar whatsoever, and I just saw a demo of it one day on the PSN. I tried it, and I freaking loved it. So, I don't know. I mean, I can't get upset with someone if they want to try something out and then go buy it. But like you said, I mean, I'm probably a saint to a lot of developers who would actually do that, because I'd actually probably go out and purchase the game if I liked it. I mean, I wouldn't just download a game for free and then play it and never like, pay for it.
Part of the problem is that, like, for these companies and for the law, there's no way to, like, easily discern the difference between those kinds of people.
You can't regulate that.
You don't know whether someone... Yeah, like, you don't know if someone has played a game just for 24 hours or if, like, they played it for, like, 150 hours and, like, they completely and totally stole the experience without paying for it. So you don't... And you have no way of knowing if that's the case, especially on these older games, right? Like, someone might download a ROM, try it for a couple hours, and potentially do the right thing and either buy it or maybe never pick it up again. I don't think developers would have a huge issue with that, because that's more or less, like how you interact with demos. But there's no way to tell.
Yeah, I mean, you downloading something and then not paying for it and getting the full experience is like if you walked into an art museum and decided to walk out with the Mona Lisa and never give it back.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing. You literally are stealing art and getting the experience.
I wouldn't say it's the same concept, but I mean, you can do a lot more with a video game than art. But I know what you're saying. I know what you mean.
It's the same thing,
It's-
Nathaniel. It's the same thing.
That almost sounded like Nathaniel was like, video games are actually the highest form of art. Actually, they're not even art. They're beyond art. No.
They should be present in the Louvre.
There is a video game museum somewhere in Texas. I forget where it is. It's like Houston or Dallas or something.
If there's a game museum where I live in Houston, I have been wasting my time doing other things. I need
Oh
to
god,
go.
Scott just gave his location away.
It's
You're gonna
true.
get swatted.
I am in Houston, Texas, a city with 5 million people.
Oh god, swatted.
Good luck.
I hope no one tracked me down.
Have a fun scavenger hunt,
Oh, jeez.
bitches.
Actually, no one better track me down. I'll be really upset.
Someone probably will.
It's going to
And
happen
they're probably
now.
going to go in and steal all the code for the Digibot, as well as the all the code for Age of Nomads.
I've had people ask me if I'm okay with the idea of people pirating Age of Nomads, and
Actually, how have we not brought that up? Yes, Scott. If someone pirated Age of Nomads, what would you say?
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know, Scott is a game developer, and he's making a game called Age of Nomads. All right, context out of the way. No, how would you feel if someone pirated
yes,
it?
context out of the way. Yeah, and just like the rest of this conversation, I have very mixed feelings about it. But ultimately, like, I would just say, as a developer, and like speaking from a developer's perspective, if you never pay for the games that you play, then you will, at least in mass on the whole, like, you will eventually kill that part of the medium or that part of the industry. So, like, if everyone, like, say for example, you love certain games from Capcom, like I love Street Fighter, right? And you never pay Capcom anything, then there's not going to be Capcom anymore, and you won't get those games. So, or what else would you not get? You wouldn't get Resident Evil, right? We would have never gotten Resident Evil 7.
Oh, don't say that. It's on the same level as Breath of the Wild.
But I mean, that's basically it. Like, that's the overall feeling, I guess. Is just,
Let me ask you this. This is a tough question. I want to get your thoughts. I'm asking all the tough questions today, guys, by the way. So, if you had 5,000 people download Age of Nomads illegally, and they loved it, and they were like, wow, I'm going to buy this guy's next game and tell all my friends about it, what would you do to that?
Ooh.
the next game.
Yeah.
Well,
They'll buy your second game because they liked your first one so much, and they're going to tell all their friends about it. Like, how would you feel about that?
I would tell them to go ahead and pay for Age of Nomads, because Age of Nomads is something I plan to work on for years. So it's like, well, if you like it now, if you pay me for it, I'll be able to make it even better that much faster. So, and I, I'm not necessarily going to throw out a sequel, at which point maybe you could go back on your word and just pirate that one too. But I would say, if you like it, buy it. That's my answer.
I'll never forget. I know a lot of people have heard of this story, but there was this guy that pirated Shovel Knight, and I forgot where Yacht Club games were. They were at some convention or something. But this guy that pirated the game walked up to Yacht Club Games, handed him a $20 bill, and he said, "I'm sorry for pirating your game," and then walked away.
That is just sole profit right there. Sole profit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were at PAX East. I think, when that happened,
PAX
like
East.
a year ago or 2 years ago.
Which, by the way, doing that, even if that's your plan for legally paying for the game somehow or paying them back, that creates even more work for them, because then they have to go do something with that cash. They have to
buy lunch.
Probably go take it to their
That's
accountant.
what I would do. I'd buy lunch.
Yeah, they might just spend it on lunch maybe and pretend it never happened or something. But
yeah, I would just not tell any of my coworkers and just take it all for myself.
I mean, that's what I would do. Because, like, if it's
not the best way.
I mean, because think about it. If someone were to do that to me, like, it wouldn't make sense for me to try to, like, shoehorn that into the game profit, because, like, I have no idea how that would even work. So I might as well just spend it on something else. It's like if you find $20 on the road, and, like, literally no one's around.
There's not, effectively, exactly. There's not much of a difference.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that was interesting.
I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up. Is there any last words?
No, not about this topic. I would just like to say, please go check out my channel, Indie Jacob. That's where I'm from. Thanks. Bye.
What about you, Scott?
That's my promotion.
What about you, Scott? Any last words?
I would say, if you want to go check out Age of Nomads, go to ageofnomads.com. I also have a show on the Indie Jacob channel, which you can go watch it. It's ancient archives at this point, on a playlist. It's called Gamefinity, so you can go check that out as well.
Right. Well,
if you like games, go buy them. And Nintendo, please just give us Mother 3, please.
Just release it from the shackles which you have kept it in.
Please.
God, I don't want to keep talking about this.
Make sure to leave a like.
problem.
Smash that freaking like button. I want you to smash it with your knuckles until
Smash
they bleed. And subscribe too if you like this, because we do this show almost once a week, but it's been like 2 weeks.
All the time.
Kind of semi-regularly.
Kind of regularly. So subscribe for this show. Also, honestly, just being real here, I'd love to see some discussion about emulation in the comments. So if you have any additional thoughts that we haven't covered, please let us know. I'm going to be reading through them. And end card. We're there right now. Click on the cards.
Boxes that you can click
Right
on
now.
if you
Papa
want.
John's boxes.
Clicking on the
Mo
cards.
Entertainment.
Oh yeah. All right, bye.